Aaron, what are you doing? I'm trying to tan.
It's time.
It's time. Let's go. Colton Furlow here. And I'm right outside of the Lincoln Memorial right here in Washington, D.C. A certain trans swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania has made news headlines yet again. So we're out here in Washington, D.C. going around asking people whether or not they think biological men should be competing in women's sports.
Oh, was I not supposed to track you?
Aaron, stop it! Do y'all believe that trans women pose a threat to women's sports?
I'm not gonna speak on that.
I don't know.
So do you guys think that biological men who transition into women should be allowed to compete in women's sports?
I believe that.
Why?
I think it's a really horrible advantage.
Can I get a let's go Brandon from anyone here?
Absolutely not.
No? I mean, this is public property. The tolerant left, everyone. All right, so do you know who William Thomas is? Leah Thomas?
Swimmer.
The swimmer from UPenn, that's the outfit here. So he, she, whatever, is about like 1.5 feet taller than the second place person at the NCAA championship. Wingspan 2 times as large. Do you think that's a little unfair?
Personally, I think that's a little unfair. Yeah.
It's a little unfair, especially female athletes and all.
I appreciate fairness and equity.
I mean, like, women have fought so hard and come so far with rights and everything, and now they're just, the left basically is letting these men just infiltrate women's sports, infiltrating everything that women have fought so hard for and ruining it.
Wait, you said it better than I can.
I did it, yes. He broke so many records by like 30 seconds. And the second place person at the NCAA championship was an Olympian and still lost.
Wasn't it like as like a woman, she was like 300th ranked?
Yeah, he sucked. He sucked as a man. I like it. I'm glad I found some people with common sense around here.
I'm trying to think of an alternative. So should we then
no alternatives?
Make an extra category for these people?
I mean, that's an option.
Identify themselves as, as females, and it's an event that very nicely highlights this, the issues that might arise with that. But
these are a lot of mental gymnastics, I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
I got a quick question. Do you think, all right, let's walk. Aaron, let's go. We're walking, and we're walking, and we're walking. Do you think biological men should be allowed in women's sports?
I have no comment. I don't know enough about that issue to comment.
You made me walk all of this way, and you tell me no comment. Are you kidding me?
Think that men should be in women's sports?
I have no idea.
No. It's pretty simple. It's a no. Men should not be in women's sports. Excuse me. Can I ask you a quick question? No? You owe child support?
Yeah, I owe child support, man. They gonna try to get it from me, man.
Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. I'm Mercedes Schlapp, and I have the great honor of having Carrie Sheffield join me. She is Senior Policy Analyst for Independent Women's Voice. Carrie, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Mercy. Great to be here.
Well, I'm so glad you reached out. You all are working on an incredible, I would say, piece of legislation, but even more so just this general concept of the Women's Bill of Rights. Talk to our audience about how this came up. Why are you focused on this right now? And what actions are y'all taking?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, focusing at the whole scoop at womensbillofrights.com. So that's the full story. You can get the whole scoop there. You can put your name if you're interested to join us. Basically, what we've done is we've joined with some members of Congress. We have 13 co-sponsors at the federal level. And on May 19th, we introduced this bill. And what it is it's a resolution that acknowledges and defines exactly what a woman is. We're not biologists. I'm not a biologist, but I can tell you what a woman is. And I'm sure, Mercy, that you could tell me what a woman is also. But it explicitly spells out what it is. what a woman is, and also the fact that under the law, we have different biological needs and different capacities than biological males. And as such, it outlines the protections that we deserve in places like battered women's shelters, prisons, in women's sports, the most basic things. And to answer your question about why now, unfortunately, our society has devolved to this place where the most basic, definitions of words no longer have any purpose or meaning in our society. And so that's why we're doing this. And we're doing it not only at the federal level, but we're speaking at the state level as well. So we'd love anyone from the CPAC team, any of your viewers who are interested in fighting this fight with us. We have paired with several other women's groups, including Concerned Women for America. And I should also note that we're also working with the Women's Liberation Front, which is a left feminist group who we don't see eye to eye on pretty much anything else. But in this case, there are some women on the left who see the threat here to biological womanhood, and we're joining forces.
Well, I got to tell you, CPAC supports the effort that you all are doing on this and being just a leader on this issue, because who would have ever thought, Carrie, that we would even have to be dealing with this issue of defining what a woman is, when you even have now the Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown basically going out there and just not being able to answer the question. It was so shocking to me. It got all of us off guard. We couldn't believe it. And it really is so disrespectful for all the women out there who have fought so hard to have equal rights to men, to be able to, climb up the ladder, to be able to raise their children with pride. And then all of a sudden you have males with a pregnant emoji, for crying out loud. Pregnant males, there's no such thing as that. But the left continues to fabricate this horrific narrative of what a woman is. And even you have Michelle Obama calling it, what is it? I don't even know how to pronounce it. Woman X? I don't even know. You take out the E, you put an X. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Mercy, I think what's happened here, this is my personal view on what's happened with the left, is that they have basically, I wasn't around politically during the fight with the 80s with Phyllis Schlafly, and God rest her soul in everything she did to fight the Equal Rights Amendment, which is horribly named. But that fight, which was to make sure that women were not treated in the same biological manner as men. That's what Phyllis Schlafly knew, that if the Equal Rights Amendment were enshrined, that would happen. And so what the left has done is that they are basically having the same end results of the Equal Rights Amendment without doing any of the legislative work. And if you look at how people respond, when you look at polling, overwhelmingly, the American people disagree that biological males should be allowed to compete in biological female sports. That's just a fact. And so Democrats and the left are usurping democracy. That's the phrase about a threat to democracy that the left loves to throw around. They are literally undermining democracy by doing this. The will of the people is not to hurt women, biological women. The will of the people is to not erase gender. The will of the people is to not erase the definition, the most fundamental, to our very basic DNA. We're XX chromosomes, males are XY chromosomes. That's science. That's science, Mercy. The left is supposed to be all about science. And so
Right.
it is dangerous.
It is dangerous. And I think it says, according to the bill, the Women's Bill of Rights is necessary to reaffirm legal protections afforded to women under federal law because of the biological differences between male and female, such as that only females can get pregnant, give birth, breastfeed children. In contrast, males are typically larger and have more muscle mass and strength. This, of course, does not fit into the Democrats' woke agenda. What response are the Democrats giving to what is this Women's Bill of Rights?
Well, I do have to point out that there are some brave Democrats who are supporting us, and so I want to give them credit, including Katie Porter from Pennsylvania, a Democrat who signed on as one of our co-sponsors. And so women who are from the left, we welcome them and they understand what's happening. But I will say it's been interesting. I think there is a bit of a generational divide, that it is the millennials, Gen Z, that is sort of the pressure here, that far left wing, the AOC wing, they are pushing and chomping at the bit for this within the Democrat Party and within the left movement. And so I think it's just incumbent on everybody, no matter your generation, to say there is a difference. There is a biological difference. And what, I think, you would agree with me, Mercy. This is not about judging anybody or, being shaming anyone or, trying to control people. People make their choices. They make their own lives.
Right.
But this is really about understanding science and also about law. Title IX was recognized under, the Congress and precedent through the law that there is a difference between biological girls and biological boys. And that is the fight that we had to make sure that girls' sports received funding and that they received protection. And this will undermine Title IX. So we believe it's illegal also, in addition to being unscientific.
Well, you bring up a good point about the women's sports. I just saw this article that popped up on Newsmax saying doctors saying that trans swimmer has physical edge over biological women. And this is a quote: "There are social aspects to sport, but physiological and biological underpin it. Testosterone is the 800-pound gorilla." This is coming from Mayo's Clinic. Dr. Michael Joyner, who made those quotes to the New York Times, and basically saying, he says, "You see the divergence immediately as the testosterone surges into the boys. There are dramatic differences in performances." These are the doctors saying this, that yet you have Leah Thomas being able to compete and obviously beating the biological females. It's just totally unfair.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not just testosterone, or testosterone is a contributor to the development of the male body, but it's wingspan, the ability, how wide your arms stretch and your lung capacity and your heart chamber size. There's so many biological fundamental realities that cannot be changed. They're immutable. And I think what the left, sadly, it's terrifying. What they're saying is, okay, well, the answer to that is to start the puberty blockers even younger. So that way, that's how you level the playing field. Meanwhile, you have over in Europe where they are starting to push back and ban that behavior on minors because they see the negative, aftermath and the negative, just associated health risks. And so we have to, as a society, protect children. We have to recognize science. We have to respect the law, Title IX, and that's what the Women's Bill of Rights is all about.
Well, I mean, we just saw in preschool in North Carolina, they were showing these flashcards. One of them included a picture of a woman, and then you have a, quote, pregnant male. And so they're trying to really start this indoctrination early on. We keep seeing how they keep pushing for in some of these school curriculums that if you're, if you have boy parts but you feel like a girl, that's fine, but let's not tell anything to the parents. I mean, seriously, it's one thing, as you were saying, be tolerant. We all love one another. It's another thing when they're trying to indoctrinate our children and parents don't have a say as to how they want to teach their children about sexuality.
You're absolutely right. And again, it is undermining democracy because these things are happening. You mentioned it's a classroom. This is a teacher who is doing this. She's not elected. The people didn't say, we need you to do this curriculum. This is something that the bureaucracy that's being run by the teachers' unions, they have done these changes without the will of the people behind them. And
Right.
What's been encouraging to see, though, is that, I live in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. We did a rebuke to people like Terry McAuliffe, who said that parents should not have any input into what's happening in the curriculum. And at the end of the day, we know there are a lot more parents than there are teachers. That's what democracy is. And again, the left is undermining democracy by trying to destroy what the definition of a woman is.
So let me ask you, Carrie, because you've launched this at the federal level. Obviously, you have support on the Republican side, some Democrats as well. What's next? Are we going to push this to the state level as well?
Sure. Yeah. So we want to get this through Congress at the federal level. I would anticipate that probably Joe Biden might veto it, but that would be, a line in the sand. And yes, thank you for mentioning, we are going to take this to the states as well. We're going to take this fight directly to the states. We think it's important that the will of the people is heard. So not only through your representative at the federal level, but also at the state level. And so we've been already starting to reach out to leaders, in governor's offices and state legislatures. So please, again, if you want to learn more information, go to womensbillofrights.com. You can sign your name onto it. I've signed onto it. We have different lawmakers who have signed onto it. And just let your lawmakers know this is the line in the sand. And the fact that, women are fundamentally different. And people say, well, I found it really offensive that Leah Thomas tried to say, okay, what I'm doing is the same thing as what Jackie Robinson did to desegregate baseball. I find that so offensive and biologically and scientifically false, because race is something that you cannot change. You can't change that. And you can't change sex. So what they're trying to separate is sex from gender as two separate concepts. And again, people can live their lives under whatever gender they want. But when it comes to sex, that is immutable. So it is the exact opposite of trying to integrate sports. It's trying to usurp weaker biologically. I'm weak. I have 5 brothers. I played lots of sports with them growing up. There are things I physically just can't do. Right. And yeah, there are some taller women and shorter men and all that. But we're talking about biological distinctions right down to the DNA.
No kidding. And on behalf of all the women out there we just cannot believe that we even have to have a women's Bill of Rights at this level so that we can talk about these biological differences between the sexes. I just can't believe our society, and we've allowed this great American society to be in this position that we're in right now. And the Democrats really trying to change the language when it comes to gender and creating all this confusion amongst the young people. It's time to wake up, and we want to thank you and the Independent Women's Voice, Independent Women's Forum, and so many of these great women groups that are coming together to preserve, to protect the rights of women here in America. Carrie Sheffield, thank you so much for joining me on America Uncanceled.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing for women as well, Mercy.
We're all in it together. Thanks, Carrie.